Well, to discuss what comes next in a bit more detail, I'm joined now by journalist and royal commentator Afua Hagan and Dr. Nigel Fletcher, political and constitutional historian. Welcome to both of you. I'm going to ask you both the same question, which I think many of our viewers want to know the answer to, which is what materially changes now. He's now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He loses the title. He's going to move from Royal Lodge to Sandringham, but he's still going to be living rent-free, paid for by the King. Let me start with you, Dr. Fletcher. What is materially different now then?
I think what is very much different is that he's quite clearly now not a member of the royal family. He remains a member of the King's family. He's the King's brother. But the difficulty with a royal family and a monarchy is that it's very difficult to separate the two. And so as the whole of this scandal has unfolded, we've seen a sort of progressive series of actions being taken or not taken to try to separate the institution of the monarchy from the individual who is causing an embarrassment to it. And what we've seen last night with this very strong statement from Buckingham Palace on behalf of the King is the closest thing that we can possibly imagine to a political sacking. If this were a government minister causing problems for a government, we're well used to how that story goes. There are bad headlines that go on for a long time. The person is perhaps found to have misled the public or lied, and they're sacked. And that's the end of it. With a royal family, it's so much more difficult to separate the two. But what we've seen with this statement, stripping him of the title of prince, I think will resonate with the public, because that's what signals that he is a member of the royal family, regardless of whether he was a working member, regardless of whether he had the HRH, various other things. He was Prince Andrew, even after he agreed not to use the Duke of York title. What this statement says is that the King is going to initiate a formal process, so he'll be struck from the peerage roll. That's quite significant. But removing that title is both symbolic, but it also, I think, says to people that as far as is absolutely possible, the royal family has cut him out. He is a private citizen and nothing to do with the institution. Okay. That's the intention.
So let me bring Afua into the conversation. As Nigel was saying there, he's no longer a member of the royal family. He's cut out of the picture. But on the other hand, again, going back to what many people have been asking me about, many of our viewers want to know the answer to, he's not totally cut out because he's going to be living on a royal estate in Sandringham. So some people might be saying, well, he's still going to be living rent-free.
Well, yes, of course he is. And he is still a member of the royal family, whether we like it or not, because he is the King's younger brother. Of course, he's not a working royal. He won't be pictured with the King or the heir to the throne. And like you so rightly said, yes, he's going to be living rent-free on the Sandringham estate. Sandringham estate is a private estate. It's owned by the King. So he won't be in Royal Lodge anymore, not necessarily in taxpayer-funded accommodation, but a private citizen, a very wealthy private citizen, still funded by the King through his private purse and still living in palatial surroundings on the Sandringham estate. So he's still very much associated with the royal family. Yes, he's going to be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, but we all know that that is the name of the royal family. So you can try and draw a line under this. You can try and separate Andrew from the family. But at the end of the day, you just can't do that because he is the King's younger brother and he's still going to be living essentially on a royal estate.
He's going to be living on a royal estate where the family celebrate Christmas. That can get complicated, can't it, Afua?
Yes, it probably will get complicated. We heard a couple of weeks ago that Andrew wouldn't be invited to Christmas at Sandringham. But hold on a second, if he's living on the Sandringham estate, how is that possibly going to pan out? How would that work? Is he just not going to come up to the main house or be in the main house over Christmas dinner? It's hard to know how that would pan out. So yeah, it is going to get complicated, absolutely.
And Nigel, let me just bring you in for a final thought as well. There are still, of course, a number of investigations around Andrew. The US Congress wants him to appear before an inquiry relating to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, this isn't over for him, is it?
No, I think, and that will be the fear in the palace, really. And by going as far as they have this week, by completely removing any vestige of royal status that he still has. I think they are preparing themselves for the worst, which is that somebody who is, of course, still the king's younger brother may be involved in very serious legal proceedings. And by cutting him off in this way, I think they're trying to limit the damage. But of course, as we've just heard, he still has the surname Windsor. And I think the family will never be able to completely separate itself from him. But as far as his constitutional position, his role, there are still some other things that could be done on that. He's still a councillor of state, and I think politicians may start to talk about that in the next few weeks. But as far as is possible, the king has done everything he can do personally now to signal his disapproval. And crucially, I think in that final paragraph of the statement from the palace, the king and queen allying themselves very much with the victims of Epstein and of abuse generally, something that Andrew himself notably didn't do in his statement a couple of weeks ago. And I think in terms of public opinion, that will be very important in how this is perceived.
Afua and Nigel, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. There's plenty more to discuss. I'm sure we'll be back with you in the coming days, but thanks to both of them for the moment.